parts here, dividing in two equal parts. And since this is the bisector, therefore from the bisector, it is equidistant from the sides of angle. That means these sides are equal from the sides of a triangle. Since these are equal, PN congruent to PM, with the yesterday's property, we directly say that chord AB and chord CD are congruent to each other. Okay, so this much for today. So have you understood it? Ma'am, everything was clear? I'm asking in the end.
Clear.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, student, the last question, it is very easy. I'm just explaining. I'm not solving this one. In this question, what was here? You are given one diameter, and we have to show that this is isosceles triangle. Isosceles means the two sides are equal. That means in this question only, it is something like this. You have to show that this triangle is isosceles. Means you have to show that either AB and AC are equal. Means any two sides you have to show equal. That means you have to show that two chords are equal. So simply just consider the two triangles. Suppose this is ABD and ADC. Show that the two triangles are congruent. If the triangles are congruent, you can directly say that the remaining two sides are congruent to each other. Okay, hope so you understood this one. So just go through it, and our lesson circle finish here. The lesson circle is completed. If you have any doubts, just reply in the chat box. Okay, thank you everyone. Ma'am, I have finished.
Thank
Okay,
you, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
That is temperature and salinity. Yes, in the first session, we have learned about these two major properties of seawater. Yes, along with that, we have studied about the experiment of salinity. Yes, I hope all the students have started doing the experiment. Yes, to experience the salinity of seawater. Okay, students, please do that. Everybody do the experiment and experience everybody of the salinity of seawater. Yes. Now, here we are going to start the second session of live lecture of chapter 6, properties of seawater. Let's start the lesson. Yes, here is your screen now. Here is your lesson in front of on your screen. Let's start. Yes, salinity. Yesterday we have learned a brief introduction of salinity. Now let's continue with the second major property of seawater, that was salinity. Yes, now in detail with geographical explanation we are going to learn about the salinity. Yes, salinity, what is salinity? In simple words we will understand that. Okay, salinity is the saltiness or amount of salt dissolved in a body of water called saline water. Yes, what is salinity? It is a saltiness or amount of salt dissolved in a body of water. It's called saline water. This and the salinity is usually measured in grams as salt and kg as seawater. Yes, salinity is an important factor in seawater. Yes, now here we have discussed in simple words what is salinity. Yes, in the first session also we have learned about the geographical explanation of salinity. Yes, now let's move forward. Now here, after this, we are going to see how the salinity of the sea water is measured. Okay, we are going to see that. See, the weight of all dissolved salts in water in ratio of parts per thousand of water is called salinity of water. Yes, the salinity of the water is measured in the weight which salt is dissolved in the water. Yes, and for example also they have given here, if the weight of dissolved salts in 1000 gram, that is 1 kg of seawater, is 40 gram, then the salinity is 40%, that is 40 per thousand parts. Salinity is measured measured in per thousand parts. You have to note it. Now, when the water will be evaporated, only the salt is left. Yes, then that remaining salt is measured measured in grams. This what how the salinity of the sea water is measured. Okay, I'll repeat. When when the water when the water when the water vapor is evaporated, only the salt is left. Yes, that the remaining salt is counted, is measured in grams. Yes, now here this was the salinity of the seawater measured. Okay, the it is usually measured in salt as grams, that is G, and seawater in kgs. Okay, yes. Now next. Yes, the next we are going to see that these are the instruments which are used to measure the salinity of seawater. First is hydrometer, refractometer, and salometer. Yes, these are the three instruments with which are used to measure the salinity of seawater. Yes. Now let's have some geographical explanation about the salinity. Yes, in the first session also we have discussed about the different heat zones. Yes, tempered zone, torrid zone, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. All the different heat zones we have studied in the first session. But now also in this session we are going to have a look on it. Yes, you can see on your screen. See the first line: the uneven distribution of temperature on earth, uneven supply of fresh water, etc. As we all know, the distribution of water on the earth or temperature is unequal. Yes, everybody knows that. Yes, then the temperature of the earth is not unique everywhere. Mostly in the equatorial region we are getting more heat. Why we are getting more heat in the equatorial region? Because means here you on your screen you can see the image. The portion which is in red color, that is known as, that region is the tropics region. It's a very hot zone. So in this zone, because of the sun rays, the temperature is more. And in tropical zone, temperature is higher and the rate of evaporation is also higher. Therefore, the salinity is higher. Yes. Now, what is tropical zone? Tropical zone means what? Tropical zone, it comes between the middle part of Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn is known as tropical zone. Yes, this is about the tropical zone. Next, second point they have explained, around 5 degree north and S south of the equator is the equatorial calm belt. The sky is cloudy for a long period of time and convectional rainfall occurs every day. As we have studied about the convectional rainfall in the precipitation. Yes, same it is like that. Whenever there is in the equatorial region, every day the rainfall is there. But which rainfall? Rainfall is convectional rainfall. We have studied this in detail in precipitation lesson. Next, they have explained large rivers like Congo and Amazon in the equatorial region meet the sea. As the rivers are meeting the sea, so they are bringing the fresh water. They are connecting, they are getting the fresh water. And the water is more. Yes, and the supply of fresh water is abundant, means it is more. But because of higher pressure, because of higher temperature, rate of evaporation is more, and therefore the seas in these areas are more saline. Yes, as the fresh supply of fresh water is more, then the temperature heat and the temperature or the heat is also more, automatically the temperature increases and their saline is more over there in that particular region. Yes, here next. Yes. Next, geographical explanation about salinity. They have explained that in the mid-latitude zone. Now, what is mid-latitude zone? On your screen, you can see the image. Mid-latitude zone means above of Tropic of Cancer and below Tropic of Capricorn. That is tempered zone. Yes, on your screen, you can see the portion which is in green color. That is known as tempered zone. That is known as mid-latitudinal zones, and the degree is 25 degree to 35 degree, that is north and south. Here the rainfall is less and the supply of fresh water from rivers is also low. This zone has the hot deserts of the world. Thus, the salinity of the seas is found to be higher here. Yes, why the salinity is higher here? Because the rainfall is less in this region, so the supply of fresh water is less over here. Yes? Yes. Sorry, student. Yes. We were here. This zone has the hot deserts of the world. Tempered zone is also the hot zones of the world. Yes, and in this tempered zone, in this region, the deserts can be seen. Okay, the deserts can be seen. The deserts are available there. The temperature is hot, but supply of water is less over here. Yes, because it is a desert, the deserts can be seen in this tempered zone. The temperature is very hot and also the supply of water is very less. Yes, example the Dead Sea. We have studied in the first session about the Dead Sea. I have given you the example. Yes, when there is we cannot survive on the Dead Sea. As the name itself, only it is that Dead Sea. Yes, this sea is in the mid-latitudinal region. Okay, in this salinity is more and the temperature is also more, but no rainfall and no fresh water can be seen in the tempered zone, and the example is Dead Sea. Yes, next. Now next they have explained about the tempered region. The sun rays are slanting and therefore the temperatures are lower. Because of the melting of the snow, the supply of water is also more. And therefore, in this zone, salinity decreases with increasing latitudes. In the polar areas, temperatures are very low. Evaporation is also very less in polar areas. So salinity is low. So here, so we have seen near the equator or mid-latitudinal region. There the salinity is more, and near the tempered zone or tempered region and in the polar region, the temperature is low. Polar region means what? Polar region means this region, Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. This portion which is in blue color, that is known as polar region. Here the temperature is low. Yes, and in the tempered zone also the temperature is low. Yes. Next. Next, they have explained about the salinity, some geographical explanation. Here, the first they have explained about the landlocked seas. Yes, what is landlocked seas? The land, the sea which is covered with all the four sides of land is known as landlocked seas. Yes, we have discussed in the first session also. And for the example, for the landlocked sea was Mediterranean Sea. What they have explained, we are going to see. Landlocked seas have higher salinity than open seas as the rate of evaporation is more and there is lack of supply of fresh water from large rivers. Thus, there is a difference in the salinities of open and enclosed seas. Yes, here they have explained with the example of the Mediterranean Sea. The average salinity of Mediterranean Sea is just 39 per thousand parts, while the salinity of the most saline ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, is 35 per thousand parts. Yes, in this, with this geographical explanation, what we have understood that landlocked seas, in the landlocked example of landlocked sea is Mediterranean Sea. Yes, it is Mediterranean Sea where it is between the Asia and Europe in the world map. You all have seen the world map. Mediterranean Sea is between Asia and Europe. Yes, and the Mediterranean Sea, all the four sides are covered with land. So that's why it is known as landlocked seas. In the world, the more saline can be seen in Atlantic Ocean. Yes, saline can be seen in the Atlantic Ocean and their salinity is more over there. Yes, and the Mediterranean Sea, it is landlocked sea and it is 39 per thousand parts of salinity. Yes. Now, so far we have learned and we have understood about the salinity till now. Yes, what is salinity? What are the some geographical explanation about it? We have learned over it. Yes, and we have learned with the different heat zones also. Yes, here till here we have done the salinity, the second major property of seawater. Now let's move forward. We are going to see the third major property of seawater, that is density. This is the last property of seawater, that is density. Now let's study the density in simple words. Okay. First we will understand what is density in our simple word. Then we will learn with the geographical explanation. Yes. Now what is density? Density is a word we use to describe how much space an object or substance takes up. Yes. Density is described that how much space an object or any substance takes up in relation to the amount of matter in that object or substance is known as density. Yes, in short also you can keep it in your mind that it is just used to describe how much space of an object or any substance takes up. That is, in simple words, that is density. Okay. Another way to put it is that density is the amount of mass per unit of volume. If an object is heavy, understand this students, if the object is heavy and compact, it has a high density. Okay. If any object or if any substance is heavy and it is compact, it has a high density. Okay, now how the density is one of the major property of seawater, we are going to see that. Okay, now here, but before explaining the geographical concept, here in simple words I'll tell you all the example of density. Yes, solids have more density because of the molecules. Yes, and liquid has density is less. Liquid density is less, and the gaseous the density is low or least density it has. Now, for example, if the water is in solid condition, okay, if the water is in solid condition, means in the form of ice cubes, are solid water. Here the density is more. Okay, if the water it turns to the evaporation, it turns to the ice cubes, that the density is more over there. Yes, because it is in solid form. Yes, so here we have, so where the place of water is in ice, there the density will be more. Okay, this was the uh, example of density and meaning also. Yes, now let's see the geographical explanation about the density. Yes, the first point here, temperature and salinity are the two properties of seawater that control the density of the seawater. Yes, what the two properties of seawater, that is temperature and salinity. Yes, but that controls the density of the seawater. Yes, if temperature reduces, density of water increases. Yes, as soon as the heat reduces, along with that, the density of the water increases. Yes, as the heat increase, the temperature will increase, and density of the water will increase. Cold water is denser, and so is saline water. As compared to salinity, temperature affects density more. When we are comparing the salinity, the temperature, most of the temperature, it affects the density in a high level. It affects more. If the temperature will be reduced, the water will be cool. Yes, students, if the temperature will be reduced, will be less, the automatically the water will be cool, and then the water will convert in ice. As the temperature is reducing, the density of water increases. Yes, for example, let's take an example of polar region. Yes, that is Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. We have just seen just now we had a look on the image of Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. Let's take an example in polar region. Now, hence, sometimes more saline water has lower. Hence, sometimes more saline water has lower temperature at the surface, but still the density of such water is more than other water. On the contrary, on the sorry, on the contrary, seawater having higher temperature and low salinity can have lower density. Yes, here they have explained that in hot water, the density is low, but in the cold water the density is high. Yes, whenever there is a hot water or a hot temperature, their density is low, and when the water is cold, that time when the water is cool, the density is high and it converts into the ice. Yes. Now, next, now in this, after understanding about the density with the example. Next, we are going to see the graph of salinity, temperature, and density. With the three major properties, we can easily understand the distribution of temperature. Easily we will get it with these three major properties to the graph. Okay, see what the graph will show. We'll see that the graph shows salinity, temperature, and density with reference to the depth of the seawater. What the graph is going to show now, that the depth of the seawater. Yes, the depth of the seawater. In the first session, I have shown you the picture of a depth sea. Yes, through that depth sea, we are going to see the graph of all the three major properties. You know that the density of the water is dependent on temperature and salinity. As we have studied just now, that the density of water is dependent on temperature and salinity. Yes, let's have a look on the graph. Yes, this is your graph. The graph is going to show, it is a vertical distribution of temperature, salinity, and density of seawater according to the depth. Now, on screen, you at the top of the top at the top there is the surface area of seawater. Yes, at the top you can see the line. There is the surface area of seawater. Yes, and on the left side they have written some numbers. The numbers is in meters, and it is depth of the seawater. For example, 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000. Yes, these numbers they have written in meters. It is at depth of the sea. Okay. Now, the first diagram you can see about the density, second is temperature, and third is salinity. Yes. First, we are going to see about the B graph, that is temperature. We are going to learn first B graph, that is temperature. See, at 0 degree, everybody have a look on temperature B diagram, B graph. At 0 meters, the temperature will be between, what is the temperature? Temperature means the red line. You can see the red line at 0 degree. At 0 degree, the temperature is 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. Yes, where there is written 0 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Celsius, 15 degrees Celsius. There is a sea surface of the sea water. Yes, understand that. Okay. Now here, what they have said that at the 0 degree Celsius, the temperature will be 10 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius. As we are going deeper and deeper, okay, as we are, see the red line, it is going down, it is going deeper and deeper. See the 500 meter in deep, the temperature is reducing, the temperature is less. Then see, after at 2000 meter, just see 2000 meter in depth, when the temperature, when the sun raises, it reaches to the 2000 meter, there the temperature is same over there. You can see the red line, see the 2000 meter, then 2500 meter, 3000 meter, 3500 meter. Here the temperature is same over there. You can see the straight line after 2000 meter. here we have understood that as we are going in deep, as we are going deeper and deeper, the heat is also reduced. Then there is a change in the temperature. And when we go deeper and deeper, the temperature is same over there. It is constant. Okay. Yes. Here we have studied till temperature graph. Now next we are going to learn about the salinity, that is the C graph. Yes, as we are near the surface of the area, we go down in depth. The salinity remains same. Here also you can see the deep zone over there, and above is the surface zone. Okay, slowly if we go down in depth, the salinity also remains same. There is no change in the salinity. Okay, and here also in the graph A, that is density. Here also density is decreasing up to 2000 meter. Here also the density is same after 2000 meter. Okay, same as per temperature and salinity. Okay, if we combine this into this the even after we are in depth of the water, there is no change in temperature. The temperature is constant over there. You have. Okay, let's start now. Yes. Here we have just studied this about the graph. Yes, about the vertical distribution of temperature, salinity and density. Yes, we with this, when we combine this all the distribution, we have what we have get at last, that after 2000 depth, after 2000 meter in depth, there is no change in the temperature. It is constant, whether it is density, whether it is temperature, or whether it is salinity. Okay, it is same. Okay. Yes. Now just now we have studied about the graph. Let's have a look on the points. If you see the graph carefully, you will realize that after a certain depth, there is no change in these factors according to the depth. Okay, as we go to a certain depth, means when we go deeper and deeper, there is no change in the factors. Echo. Yes, the change can be seen up to a depth of about 500 meters. Okay, there is only the change till 500 meter. Then after 500 meter, their change is constant. Okay, the slopes of the curves of the graph are varying for all the three factors, but below the depth of 1000 meter, there is no change in all the three factors. Okay, just now we have learned about this. Yes. Okay, now till here our lesson chapter 6, that properties of seawater, is completed. Okay, we have studied the three major properties of seawater. That is, the first was temperature, second salinity, third density. Now here we are going to revise the lesson, but through the question answers, through the give reasons, we are going to revise the lesson. Okay, see the first give reason. The questions are from your textbook only. If you want, you can take the screenshot, students, of the question and answers, and along with that we are going to revise the lesson through it. Okay, see the first. Now it is a give reason. Salinity is low in the landlocked Baltic Sea. Why? You have to give the reason. Yes. Why the salinity is low in landlocked seas? Let's have a look on the answer. Here you can see the image of Baltic Sea on the map. Yes, the blue color, that is, it is the Baltic Sea. Yes, all the four sides of the Baltic Sea is covered with the land. So this is the example of landlocked sea. See, let's have a look on the answer. The water in the Baltic Sea is salt because of low salinity. There is only 20% salinity in the water. The Baltic Sea is very small and shallow deep sea. At a time, the Baltic Ocean is covered by ice. So their area is totally freezing. Winter is all time going on. The ice is mostly seen in February. That time totally ice is covered in Baltic Sea. Okay, why the here the reason is because of the supply of fresh water. Because of the supply of fresh water is more, is high, the evaporation is less in Baltic Sea is known. That is the reason. Okay, and salinity is low in the landlocked sea because of the high temperature. Because of the high temperature, the fresh water from the surrounding land gets run off, and the salt density is also low over there. So that's what the salinity is low in the landlocked Baltic Sea. Was the first. We have learned about the second property of seawater, that was salinity. Yes. The second question is about the, just now we have talked about the this after 2000 meter there is no change in the temperature. Yes, it doesn't affect it doesn't affect all the three factors. Now what is the question? This is also one of the give reason. With increasing depth, the temperature of seawater decreases to a certain limit. You have to give the reason for it. Yes, with increasing depth, the temperature of the seawater decreases. So why it decreases, we are going to see through give reason. See, the sunlight doesn't reach the depth of the sea at the bottom. So the bottom portion remains cool as compared to the top one. Yes, here on your image also you can see at the top, you can see the sun raises. Yes, but when we go deeper, that time the sun raises doesn't reach. It becomes dark inside. The sunlight can't reach there. The sunlight can't reach the depth of sea. So the temperature of sea decreases to a certain limit with increasing depth. Next. Yes. The third one is about explain how temperature affects the following. We are going to learn that, we are going to understand that the temperature, how the temperature affects the density of seawater. We will see in with the answer what they have explained, that as temperature goes down, seawater gets more dense. Yes, when the temperature is high, seawater is more dense, means the density is high. So the colder the water, the more the dense it is. The density of water can also be increased by salinity. Less dense water floats on top of more dense water. Near the freezing point, water expands when it heats up. So increasing temperature decreases the density of seawater. Yes. Next, explain the distribution of salinity around the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Now here we have to distribute the salinity of around Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Yes, what is the answer? We are going to see it. There is highest salinity water along the both tropics on 23 degrees north and 23 degrees south. Evaporation is high in both tropics because due to the sun rays, due to high temperature and very low precipitation. This is because all the process that act to change salinity occur at the surface, not deep in the ocean. Yes, students, with this question answers, I hope you all have taken screenshot of the question answers, and here we have revised the lesson also along with the question answers. Yes, thank you, students. Here we have completed chapter 6, Geography Properties of Seawater. I hope you have understood very well. Read the lesson and solve the exercise. After that, thank you for listening. Thank you for attentive. Thank you, students. Bye bye.
Good morning, students. Myself Shraddha. I'm a member of and to acceptable easy. So let's begin. So we start with the chapter number 7, energy flow in an ecosystem. Now you can see here how beautiful scenery is. Our, our environment is very beautiful. In our environment, river flowing, then mountains with the clouds, trees are there, animals are there. These all are the components of environment. And these all components together with the environment forms the ecosystem. What it forms? It will be ecosystem. You can see the rivers, animals, and all other things like atmosphere and all the and also we are also the what is ecosystem? Ecosystem is the whole biotic community and also its abiotic environment. Ecosystem is biotic and abiotic environment. What is biotic? Living and abiotic is non-living. So ecosystem consists of both living and non-living component. So ecosystem is the whole biotic community plus its environment. So what is ecosystem? The whole biotic community, whole living community. This is the area given. Here living plants are there, living things with in a given area. In this given area, with abiotic rivers are there, clouds are there. These are all are abiotic non-living component forms the ecosystem. So whole biotic community in a given area plus its system to among organisms in a particular given area and also the interaction with their is what which is formed due to interaction means continuously they are continuously interacting with the non-living. So like that in a given area when living things and non-living things each other, it is known as what? Ecosystem is a system which is formed. How the ecosystem is formed? Due to the interaction biotic that is living and abiotic that is non-living particular non-living components in a given event system. Ecosystems are of two types. We will see forest, the, the desert, or these are what natural ecosystem. Types of ecosystems are there two types. In these two types of ecosystem, there is a natural and the artificial ecosystem. In the natural ecosystem, what desert, then rivers are there, big sea, which are the natural ecosystem. Artificial ecosystem, there are fresh water, there are aquatic ecosystem, which includes fresh water, marine water, and oceanic water. Fish, sea, also the fresh water, marine water, natural ecosystem. The land. Forest, terrestrial ecosystem as they form on land. And fresh water, marine water, and ecosystem. Terrestrial what as they are using lands, terrestrial ecosystem, and following freshwater marine and oceans. These are what ecosystem. Now we will see ecosystem. Ecosystem in the another picture the species of natural system. Picture the artificial ecosystem with an aquarium under aquarium and crop. The example artificial and other is artificial is ecosystems formed on land are known as aquatic ecosystem terms which is man-made, that is artificial ecosystem, which includes garden, crop. Now we will see the energy flow and see the living organism is an integral the part of ecosystems other organism and they refer
Shraddha ma'am.
first
Ma'am, you are not audible. Actually, your voice is breaking a lot.
ma'am, now it's audible.
Yeah,
Hello.
now it's audible. Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now we come to the energy flow in ecosystem. Now there is a continuous energy flow between the living organisms. Like if grasshopper is eating the grass, means grasshopper is feed on the grasshopper is feeds on the grass, and again the grasshopper is been eaten by the frog. So a frog is refeed on the grasshopper. So there is a chain. There is a food chain. So continuously the energy flow in an ecosystem, and organisms are the integral part of this ecosystem, and they feed and refeed on each other. The flow of energy is unidirectional. Unidirectional means what? They flow in a single one direction, one way only. The energy flow is unidirection. Uni means what? One, single. So there is a single one way only they can flow from one organism to the another organism. Now we will see one by one. Now you can see the deer in the picture. This deer will feed on the grass. So from the grass, the energy transfer to this deer. As we also eating the food, why we require food? To get the energy so we can do the daily routine work. So for getting the energy, what we required? We required the food. So these animals also requires the food for their daily work. So this deer is feed on the grass. So when he eat the grass, what he get? He get the energy. Then this tiger will eat the deer. So from the energy will pass on to the tiger. When tiger feeds on deer, the energy will pass to the tiger. So this energy is what? Unidirectional. Like it flow from one, it is flowing in one direction only. Like from grass, it transferred to the deer, and from the deer, it transferred to the. There is a transfer of energy in one direction only. It will not, like grass will not eat again the tiger. So it is not a cyclic form. It is a unidirectional way by which the energy is transferring. Like when deer eats the grass, the energy will transfer to the deer. After that, tiger will eat the deer, and that energy will pass on to the tiger. So this is the energy flow in an ecosystem. As the organism feed and refeed on each other, the energy flow in a unidirectional flow. And all organisms are the integral part of the ecosystem. Now we will see here grass. Grass are the producers. Grass are the producers. Means what? They the all green plants are the producers only, as they can make their food by their own with the help. What is the source of making the food for plants? Sun is the main source for the plants to make the food by the process known as photosynthesis. Yes, so the plants are known as what? Producers. Then there are animals like zebra. They are the consumers. They are eating the grass. You can see in the picture also, zebras are eating the grass. So they are what? Consumers. They cannot make their own food. So they are depending on the another like producers for their food. So they are known as what? Consumer. Then you can see here, these are the decomposers. You are familiar with the word mushroom, which are the decomposers. And there are parasites. This decomposer and parasites, what they do when these animals or consumers become dead. So the decomposers and parasites will live on it. They decompose it. The dead and decaying material or remains of the animals are being decomposed by the decomposers and parasites. Decomposers also include like bacteria and fungi. Decomposers also include what? Fungi and bacteria. So they help to decompose the body of the dead animals. So what is producer? Producers are the green plants which produce their own food with the help of sun, with the process of photosynthesis. And consumers are what? They feeds on the producers. So they are known as consumer. After the consumer dead, their dead and decaying bodies are being consumed or decomposed by the decomposer and parasites, so that they will form that complex body into the simple material, so that it will easily mixed up with the soil, so that it will easily mixed up with what? Soil, so that it will again pass on to the environment. Now what are producers? As I told in the earlier slide, producers are the green plant. All organisms that produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis are called autotrophs or producers. Why they are making their own food? As they are having the chlorophyll pigment, they will, with the help of photosynthesis, make their own food. So all organisms that produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis are called what? Autotrophs. What is the meaning of autotroph? All organisms that produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis are called autotrophs or producers. Green plants are the producers of ecosystem. All the green plants are what? Producers of ecosystems. So what are the producers? These are the green plants which are the producers of the ecosystems and produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis. What are the consumers? Consumers are all animals and few non-green plants that cannot prepare their food. Why non-green plants? Because green plants that contains the chlorophyll pigments can form their food by their own with the help of photosynthesis. But those who are not having the green color pigment chlorophyll, they cannot produce their food. So that is why they are known as consumers. So non-green plants are consumers. All animals and few non-green plants that cannot prepare their food and depend on the autotrophs for their survival are called heterotrophs or consumers. What is the another word for consumers? They also known as heterotrophs. Producers are also known as autotrophs and consumers are also known as heterotrophs. So all animals and few non-green plants that cannot prepare their food and depend on the autotrophs for their survival are called heterotrophs or consumers. Now we will see how the consumers are further divided. These consumer organisms are further divided into four types. First, you can see they are the primary consumers. In primary consumers, they are herbivores. Herbivores means what? They feeds on the plants. Herbivores means what? They eat the plants. Primary consumers are herbivores that are directly depend on autotrophs. Autotrophs means what? Producers. Or they use herbivores as or they produce their own food. Which are the primary consumers? Primary consumers are herbivores that are directly depends on autotrophs or producer for their food. You can see in the picture, herbivores are what? Primary consumers are what? They are directly depend on autotrophs or producers for their food. So they depends on plants for their food. Primary consumers are depending on plants for their food. Examples of primary consumers are what? Rabbit, zebra, mouse, butterfly. Those who are eating the plants are the examples of primary consumers. Then we will see the next, that is secondary consumer. Secondary consumers are they use herbivores as their food. Now the secondary consumers will eat this like butterfly or grasshoppers, rabbits. So the secondary consumers will eat this primary consumers. So they depend on primary consumers for their food. The primary consumers are herbivores. So these secondary consumers will depend on these herbivores for their food. Secondary consumers depends on herbivores for their food. Example of secondary consumers are what? Fox, frog, owl, fox are the examples of the secondary consumers. Then the third is apex, that is the topmost. Apex use herbivores and carnivores. These are the carnivores. Primary are the herbivores and secondary are the carnivores. And these apex consumers eat both primary and the secondary consumers. Third one, that is apex or top consumers, eat the herbivores as well as carnivores. Examples of apex or top consumers are tiger and lion. Then fourth is mixed consumer. Mixed consumers are those who are feed on both plants and animals are called mixed consumers. Example of it are human, human being and bear. Those feed on both like omnivores. We are omnivores. So which are the four consumers? Four types of consumers. First one is primary consumers. Those can prepare their food by own and also depends on the producer. And secondary consumers are what? Secondary consumers are they depend on the herbivores. They are known as carnivores, and apex are feed on both primary and secondary consumer for their food. And mixed means what? They also depend on the plants and animals for their survival. So there are 4 types of consumers: primary consumers, secondary consumers, apex or top consumers, and mixed consumers. The example of primary consumers are butterfly, grasshopper, rabbit, zebra. Then secondary consumers are fox, owl, frog are the examples of secondary consumers. Then apex or top consumers are having tiger, lion. Mixed consumers are human being and bear. You can see your sun. Now we will see the food chain. You can see a grass. So with grass, with the help of sun, will produce the what it will produce? The produce the food. Grass are the producers. Grass is being eaten up by the grasshoppers. Then grasshopper is eaten by the frog. Then again frog is eaten by the snake. Then snake is eaten by the eagle. Then when the eagle dies, their dead bodies become decomposed by the saprophytes. Okay, have you seen this? This is the sun is the main source of energy. Sun is what? The main source of energy. Its energy transferred to the grass, as grass will produce food with the help of sunlight. That is the process known as photosynthesis. Green color plants are the producers which produce the food with the help of sunlight. This grass is been, that is producer, is been eaten up by the grasshoppers. Grasshoppers are the herbivores. They are primary consumers. So they will eat the grass. So grass energy will transfer to the grasshopper. Then this grasshopper is eaten up by the carnivores, that is frog. So this frog will eat the grasshopper and energy will pass on to the frog. Then this frog will be eaten up by the snake. Then snake is eaten up by the eagle, and the eagle is the topmost consumer, which is then decomposed by the saprophytes. When eagle dies, its dead and decaying body will be decomposed by the saprophyte, so it will again mix with the soil. So you can see here the energy transfer in a unidirectional way only, in one way only. It is not passed again uh, in a backward direction or a bidirectional. It is in a unidirectional only, the flow of energy in one direction only, from sun to grass, from grass to grasshopper, from grasshopper to the frog, and from frog to the snake, and from snake to the eagle, and eagle's dead and decaying body will be decomposed by the saprophytes. So this chain, you can see there is an interconnection between them. If there is no sun, how plants can produce the food? If anyone is absent in this chain, the chain will remain incomplete. If there is no grasshopper, then on what the frog will not eat the grass. So if any one of the organisms are absent in this, the food chain will not form. They are interlinked with each other. They are interdependent on each other. They are interconnected with each other to form the food chain. So they are feed and refeed on each other for their survival. So they will form like this chain. You can see here there is a sun. The sun will help to produce food by the plants. Then this plant is been eaten up by the grasshopper. Then grasshopper is eaten up by the frog. Then it will be eaten up by the snake. Snake is eaten up by the eagle, and their dead body is been decomposed by the saprophytes, fungi. So there is a food chain. They all are interlocked with each other. They are all interconnected with each other. Now such many uh, so interaction go on continuously between, there is a continuous interaction between producers, consumers, and saprophytes. So there is a continuous interactions between all of these producers, consumers, and saprophytes. There is a definite sequence in this interaction which is called the food chain. Each chain consists of 4, 5 or more links. Each chain consists of 4, 5 or more links. So this food chain is what all the organisms uh, feed another organisms, or primary consumers feeds on producer, and they form the chain, and they all are interdependent on each other. There are many food chains like this present, like you can see here. There are many food chains you can see here, like plant is eaten up by the squirrel also, and the squirrel eaten up by the fox. Here the plant is eaten up by the uh, bird, then bird is eaten up by the snake, and snake is eaten up uh, by the eagle. Here also the caterpillar feed on the plants. This caterpillar eaten up by the frog. Again here the plants are being eaten up by the butterfly, and butterfly is eaten up by the frog, and frog is eaten up by the eagle. So you can see here three food chains are there, 3 to 4 food chains are there, so they can form the food web. Now what is food web? We will see what is food web. Like an ecosystem consists of many food chains that are interconnected at various levels. You can see they are interconnected at various layers. Thus, a food web is formed. An organism may be prey for many other organisms. Means like see here, this caterpillar is eaten up by this bird also, and this caterpillar can be eaten up by the frog also. Yes, you can see here. So this frog can eat both. This bird also, this caterpillar is being eaten by the bird also and by the frog also. So caterpillar is the food for both of them. So like that, bird is also the food for fox also and for the eagle also. So like this, many organisms can be depend on many other variety of food. So there is a interlinks. There is a variety of food chain in this. Uh, there are variety of food chains are there which will together form the food web. And organisms may be prey for many other organisms. For an example, an insect feeds upon leaves of various plants, but the same insect is the prey for different animals like frog, wall lizard, birds, etc. Such an intricate network is called a food web. Generally, food webs are found everywhere in nature. So what is food web? There are number of food chain interconnected with each other. It will form a web. Like one organism can be depend on many other organisms for its food. Now we will see one by one this question. Is the number of consumer in a food web are fixed? Is the number of consumers in a food web are fixed? No, the number of consumers in a food web is not fixed. The number of consumers in food web are not fixed due to complex interactions. The consumers to keep on changing in any natural food web. Due to the complex interaction, the consumers keep on changing in any natural food web. So there is a no fixed number of consumers are there. So next question, what will be the effect on ecosystem if only one type of organism in it form the food for several different consumers in that ecosystem? What will be the effect on ecosystem if only one type of organism in it form the food for several different consumers in that ecosystem? If only one type of organism in an ecosystem forms the food for several different consumers, then there will be shortage of food. What will be the effect on What will be the effect on ecosystem? There will be shortage of food if one type of organisms is only preparing the become the food for the several consumers. If the food required by many consumers is finished, then the number of consumers in the ecosystem will fall down due to starvation. Due to the starvation, the number of consumer also fall down in an ecosystem. All this will result in imbalance of the ecosystem. All this will result in what? Imbalance in ecosystem. So there will be the balance in the ecosystem. Why is balance or equilibrium necessary in a food web? If there is no equilibrium in food web, then the interaction within and among the different trophic levels of the ecosystems will not take place. The interaction will not, if there is no balance or equilibrium necessary in the food web, the interaction among the different trophic levels of ecosystem will not take place. Means the interaction between the organisms in an ecosystem will not take place. If the number of producers is less than the number of consumer, it will lead to shortage of food and death of consumers due to starvation. And if the numbers of apex consumers like tiger decreases due to excessive hunting, then the secondary consumers like deer would increase in number as the tigers will die. Tigers are being hunted by the people. There is no tiger will not remain, and the number of deer, those are secondary consumers, will increase in number. Then their population will remain uncontrolled, resulting in overgrazing. If the number of deers are increasing, the overgrazing means the grass has been eaten up in a more amount. So there is a total destruction of the grassland. Such consequences are harmful for any kind of ecosystem. Therefore, a balance or equilibrium is necessary in a food web. What is necessary in food web? The balance and equilibrium in any kind of ecosystem is very important. Now you can see in this picture the boy is eating the meal. Now make some interesting observations while having a meal at home. You can also, while eating the meal, you can make the observation that you are present at which trophic level. Identify the trophic level of the various food items in your dish. Identify your own level in the chain. Now you can see here what this boy is eating. He is eating rice, salad, then he is also eating the meat. If the boy is eating only rice and the salad, so from where the rice and salad comes from? The rice and salad comes from the plants. So they constitute the first level, that is producer. What the boy is eating? Producer. So he will be at second level of trophic level, or he is eating the producer, so he is herbivore. If he is eating the meat, that is second. uh, that means that is the second level of trophic level, herbivorous. So if the boy is eating the meat, then he will be at like he is the carnivore. So depending upon the uh, source of food he is eating, source of food, we can decide at which level, which trophic level we are consuming the food. So accordingly we will get the nutrition. Now we will see the trophic level. What is the trophic level? Each level in the food chain is called trophic level. Each level in the food chain means you have seen the level like it starts from grass, then there is a next level, that is those who are depending on the grass, that is grasshoppers and all. So accordingly there is a level of level in the food chain which is known as trophic level. Which is known as what? Trophic level. So each level in the food chain is called a trophic level. A trophic level is the step at which the organism obtains its food in the chain. A trophic level is the step at which a trophic level is the step at which the organism obtains its food in the chain. the amount of matter and energy gradually decrease from producers at lower level to the topmost consumers at the highest level. As the energy pyramid, we can see it is a triangular in shape. At the lower level, the base is there is a base is wider, and at the top it is narrow. So this is the form of energy flows, means energy at the lower level is more, and gradually as it increasing, it will be less in number. The amount of energy will be lesser in number at the top. Now see here, all producers at the base who are present, all producers in the ecosystems, that is plants. Then in the second trophic level, there is a herbivores, then carnivores, and at the top there are omnivores, those who are feeds on both carnivores and herbivores. Then these are known as the base level is the first level is known as what? Producers. Herbivores are known as first trophic level, then carnivores are at the second trophic level, and omnivores are at third trophic level. So producers, that are plants, are producers at the base, herbivores are at the first trophic level, carnivores are at the second trophic level, and omnivores are at the third trophic level. As we go above the energy, the amount of energy consumed is lesser. Energy consumed is gradually lowest at the top. The number of producers are more. As we go further and further, the number of organisms become lesser. Like plant, many plants are there. Herbivores eating the plants, they are decreasing. They are the less in number than the plants. Carnivores are less in number than herbivores, and omnivores are less in number than the carnivores. Now you can see your energy pyramid. What is energy pyramid? The number of all organisms decreases from the lowest low level to the highest level. This pattern of energy exchange in an ecosystem is called a pyramid of energy. As the energy level decreases as it go above, energy level is more at base and it is lesser at the top. So how the energies is decreasing, this is known as a pyramid of energy. You can see here phytoplankton. This is the pyramid of energy in an aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic means what? Oceanic, or you may say marine ecosystem. You can see at the base there are 10,000 kilopascal energy is there at the base, which is decreased to the 1000 kilocalories. Then this 1000 kilocalorie further decreased to 100 kilocalories, and further it remains only 10 kilocalories. At the base it is more, that is 10,000 kilocalories. It decreased to 1000, then it decreased to 100, and as it go above it remains only 10 kilocalories. So as we go above, the number of kilocalories, that is energy, decreases. The amount of energy decreases, and this type of uh, process or arrange pattern, this pattern is known as what? Pyramid of energy. This shows, this energy pyramid shows how the energy transferring from one organism to the another organism, or one trophic level to the another trophic level, how the energy is decreasing, and the number of uh, organisms in this particular trophic levels are also increasing. Now this see these are the two scientists. First is Lindman. He has developed Lindman in 1942, studied the food chain and energy flow through it. Charles Elton, a British scientist. Second one is Charles Elton, a British scientist, first proposed the concept of the ecological pyramid in year 1927 after his study of the tundra ecosystem of the Bear Island in England. Hence, this pyramid is also called as Eltonian pyramid. This pyramid, what is the another name of this pyramid? Eltonian pyramid, as it is discovered by the scientist named Charles Elton in year 1927. So these are the two scientists who has uh, studied the food chain and the ecological pyramid. The Lindman in year 1942 has studied about the food chain and the energy flow and show how the energy is passed on or pass on through this trophic level. And in 1927 ecological pyramid pattern has been formed by the scientist Charles Elton, and this pyramid or pyramid of energy is also known as Eltonian pyramid. Now you can make a food chain example of your own. So when we are having the next lecture, I will ask you to give me the example of any food chain, but it should be not which I have given you in the slides or not also from the textbook. Make the food chain by your own. Referring the textbook, you can make the food chain by your own. So write down this or take the screenshot of it, and you have to try to make the food chain. Give the example of any food chain. Okay. Now there is a evaluation questions. Please take the screenshot of it. First question is energy flow through an ecosystem is one way. Energy flow through an ecosystem is one way, that is unidirectional. I'll explain you how the energy flow from one organism to the another organism in a one way only, in a unidirectional way only. So you have to give the reason why there is a flow of energy in an ecosystem is unidirectional. Right, copy down this question or take the screenshot of it. Second question is explain in detail the interrelation between the food chain and the food web. You have already seen the food chain is a linear arrangement of the organisms which are depend on each other for their food or for their nutrition, and food web is what there are many food chain interlinked or interconnected with each other to form the web like structure, that is a food web. Means one organism is being eaten up by the is a food for many other organisms, so they will form the food many food chains, and these food chains are interconnected with each other to form the food web. So these are the two questions. Copy down or take the screenshot of it. We will quickly revise from the beginning. Now see here, you can see in this picture all the biotic and abiotic components. Abiotic means non-living, river, trees, mountain, clouds, animal are there, and also we are the part of this ecosystem. There are two types of ecosystem. One is terrestrial, which includes the forest, grasslands, and the deserts, and also aquatic ecosystem. There are freshwater ecosystem, oceanic marine ecosystem, and also the ocean ecosystem. Then further it also divide into natural ecosystem and the artificial ecosystem. Natural means those we have seen in the last previous slide. They are natural ecosystems, and artificial means garden, aquarium, or crop fields are come under the ecosystem which are artificial. Then there is energy flow. Grass will be eaten up by the deer. The energy will flow from grass to the deer. This deer will be eaten up by the tiger. So there is a continuous flow of energy in a one direction from one organism to the another organisms. Then there is a producers. These are the green plants. Then these are the consumers, which are the herbivores, which are feed on the producers, and these are the saprophytes. When these decomposes and saprophytes, which will eat or which will rely on the dead and decay of the organisms for their food. Then producers are the all green plants that produce food by their own. Consumers are feed on the producers for their food. Then there are four types of consumers: primary consumers, secondary consumers, then apex or top consumers, and the mixed consumers. Primary consumers are eaten up by the secondary, apex or top eat the secondary and primary consumers, and mixed consumers will feed on secondary and apex or plants and also the primary. There is a sun as a source of energy, main source of energy, which will give energy to the grass. Grass is being eaten up by the grasshopper. Grasshopper eaten up by the frog. Frog is eaten up by the snake, and snake is eaten up by the eagle. And when the eagle die, the dead body of eagle will be decomposed by the saprophytes. So there is a flow. This you can see here. There is a linear formation of chain, which is known as a food chain. They are interlinked with each other. See the food chain, how they have formed they are feed and refeed on another organisms, and all the food chains together form the web, which is known as food web. Okay, and this is the trophic level. The producers at the base, they are known as they are more in number than herbivorous. They are at first trophic level. Carnivores are at the second trophic level, and omnivores are at the apex, that is third trophic level. And in energy pyramid, as you go above the energy, the pattern, see the pattern, how is the pattern? At the base there is a more amount of energy. As you go further, the energy will decreases. So this pattern is known as energy pyramid, which is developed by scientist Charles Elton, and it is also known as Eltonian pyramid. And food chain and energy flow is by scientist Lindemann in year 1942. And you have to try out the how to make the food chain. You have to give example of one food chain in the next lecture. I hope you have copied down these questions or you have taken the screenshot of it. So all this much for today's lecture. So we will stop here. Okay, we have stopped here. I
Okay,
hope
ma'am.
you have
Okay, okay.
understood everything.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.